The colony world was quiet at night. Far away from the city lights, the river flowed slowly, reflecting the silver glow of two moons above. Across the river stood a crystal bridge that shone faintly at midnight. People said the bridge was built long ago, not by humans but by the first explorers and settlers. It was made of strange glowing stone, strong and smooth, always shining when the sky grew dark. Most people of the colony did not walk across it at night. They feared the silence, the shadows, and the stories told by the old ones. But for Aaron, the bridge was a place of peace. Aaron was a young man who liked quiet moments. He worked during the day with the other colonists, carrying supplies and fixing machines, but when night came, he wanted something different. He often walked to the river to clear his thoughts. The sound of water, the open stars, and the glow of the bridge gave him comfort. That night was colder than usual. A soft wind moved across the grass as Aaron stepped onto the glowing bridge. His footsteps echoed lightly, and the crystals under his boots seemed to shine brighter. He placed his hands on the railing and looked down at the river. For a while, there was only silence. Then he noticed something unusual. At the far side of the bridge, a gentle light flickered. It was not the natural glow of the crystals but something softer, like the shimmer of small lanterns. Aaron squinted, curious. Slowly, the light moved closer. It was not a lantern. It was a person. The figure walked with calm steps, the glow coming from her hands. As she came nearer, Aaron realized she was not human. Her skin gave off a pale shimmer, like moonlight on water. Her hair floated slightly, as if touched by an invisible breeze, and her eyes were deep and bright, glowing softly in the night. She was one of the Ilari, the alien people who had settled on the other side of the valley. Aaron froze for a moment. He had seen Ilari from a distance in the market, but never alone, never on the bridge. The humans and Ilari traded goods and shared some places, but many still kept their distance, unsure of each other. The girl stopped a few steps away, tilting her head. Her glowing hands dimmed until only the crystal bridge lit their faces. "You are human," she said softly, her voice calm but curious. Aaron nodded. "And you are Ilari?" They looked at each other in silence for a few seconds, both cautious. Finally, Aaron smiled a little and said, "I didn't expect anyone else here at midnight." The girl lowered her hands and stepped closer. "Nor did I. My name is Lyra." "Aaron," he replied. For a moment, they both turned their eyes to the river. The water shimmered under the bridge's light. It felt less strange to stand there together, as if the bridge itself welcomed both of them. "Why do you come here?" Lyra asked gently. Aaron thought for a moment. "To think. To breathe. The bridge feels quiet. It feels like it doesn't care if I am alone." Lyra gave a soft smile. "I come for the same reason. My people say the bridge remembers voices, that it listens when we speak. Perhaps it listens to you too." Her words made Aaron curious. "The bridge remembers?" "Yes," Lyra said. She lifted her hand, and a faint line of light appeared in the crystals. "They say the stone keeps memory. Every step, every sound, every voice, it carries them for years." Aaron touched the railing again, imagining all the footsteps that had passed before his own. "Maybe it remembers us now," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her eyes glowing a little brighter. "Perhaps." They fell into an easy silence, not heavy but calm. The bridge seemed warmer with two people standing there. After a while, Aaron asked, "Do your people walk here often?" "Not many," Lyra answered. They think it belongs to the past. They do not like to walk where humans walk freely. Aaron nodded. It is the same for my people. He paused, then added, but maybe it belongs to both of us. Lyra's smile deepened. Maybe. The wind moved across the river again, and the two moons shifted higher in the sky. Aaron realized he had stayed longer than usual. He glanced back toward the colony lights in the distance. I should go, he said quietly. Lyra also turned toward the valley hills where her people lived. Yes. But perhaps we will meet again. Aaron hesitated, then gave a small nod. Perhaps. As he walked away, the sound of his steps echoed against hers, two sets of footsteps fading into the night from opposite sides of the glowing bridge. The river flowed on, carrying the memory of their first meeting, while the bridge shone brighter under the midnight sky. It was only a beginning, but something in that moment felt alive, like a spark waiting to grow. The following day, Aaron could not stop thinking about the strange meeting on the bridge. While working in the colony fields, his hands moved automatically, but his mind kept returning to the pale shimmer of Lyra's skin and the calm sound of her voice. He wondered if she had felt the same quiet spark that he had felt. When the evening came, he made a decision. He would return to the bridge. Perhaps it had only been chance, and she would not come again, but something inside him told him to try. The night was clear, and the moons were bright as Aaron walked the familiar path. The grass moved gently in the cool wind, and the river ahead glowed faintly. His heart beat a little faster when the crystal bridge came into view. At first, it was empty, shining silently as before. But then, at the far end, he saw it again, a soft glow. His steps quickened. Lyra was there. This time, she was sitting on the railing, holding small glowing stones in her hands. They shone in different colors: blue, green, and gold, like tiny captured stars. She looked up when Aaron approached, her face calm but brighter with recognition. "You came back," she said softly. Aaron nodded, smiling. "I thought I might not see you again." "I thought the same," she replied, holding out her hand. "These are light stones. They grow on my world. We use them to guide our paths at night." Aaron carefully took one of the glowing stones. It was warm, pulsing faintly, as if alive. "Beautiful," he whispered. "We don't have anything like this on Earth." Lyra tilted her head. "Earth? That is your home?" "Yes," Aaron said, placing the stone back in her palm. "Far away, but still remembered. My people tell stories of green forests, wide oceans, and skies full of blue light. I have never seen it myself, but I dream of it." Lyra's eyes glowed gently as she listened. "You dream with pictures. My people dream with sound and light. We sing our memories into shapes, so they can be shared." She lifted her hands, and the stones floated above her fingers. The colors wove together, forming patterns in the air, swirls of gold and blue that danced like fireflies. Aaron watched with wide eyes, amazed. "That's incredible," he said softly. "Like music for the eyes." Lyra laughed gently. "And you, human, you carry music for the ears. I have heard your people playing strings and drums. The sound travels across the valley at night." Aaron smiled. "Music is our way to speak when words are not enough." They both stood in silence for a moment, sharing the thought. The bridge glowed beneath their feet, carrying the shimmer of the stones and the sound of the flowing river. But not everyone in the colony thought such meetings were good. That same day, in the village market, Aaron had heard whispers. A few men spoke about the Ilari with distrust, warning others not to get too close. They remembered old disagreements about land and trade. To many, humans and Ilari were still strangers, even after years of living side by side. And Lyra, too, had heard warnings. Her elder had spoken the night before, saying, "The humans are quick to smile, but their hearts are heavy with pride. Do not let them draw you away from your own people." Yet here they were, standing on the midnight bridge, speaking easily, sharing light and stories. Aaron noticed the soft sadness in Lyra's eyes. "Do your people mind that you come here?" he asked carefully. She lowered her gaze. "Some would not understand. They think the bridge is dangerous, not because of the stone, but because of who might stand upon it." Aaron nodded slowly. "It is the same with mine. But I don't think this bridge is dangerous." "What do you think it is then?" she asked. Aaron looked out at the river, thinking. "A path. A way to meet in the middle." Lyra followed his gaze, her eyes softening. "Perhaps you are right." The wind grew stronger, carrying the sound of leaves rustling along the river bank. The light stones in her hands pulsed brighter, reflecting in Aaron's eyes. For a moment, the world felt very small, as if only the bridge and the river existed. "Will you come again tomorrow?" Aaron asked at last. Lyra hesitated, her hands closing around the stones. "I should not," she whispered. But then she looked at him, her glowing eyes steady. "And yet, I think I will." Aaron's smile widened. "Then I will be here." They parted once more, walking back toward their different worlds. But their hearts no longer carried the same weight of loneliness. Now there was curiosity, and something more like sparks waiting to catch fire. The bridge glowed behind them, keeping the memory of two voices, two hearts, daring to meet in the dark. The days passed, and the bridge became more than a quiet place for Aaron. It became a promise. Each night, when the moons rose and the crystals began to glow, he walked toward the river with steady steps, hoping to see Lyra again. And each time, she was there, waiting, holding her glowing stones or standing by the railing, her eyes bright in the night. Their meetings grew longer. At first, they spoke cautiously, learning small things about each other's lives. Aaron told her about the colony, the heavy machines, the long hours of work, and the laughter of children running through the fields. Lyra spoke of the Ilari village, the way they sang their history, the colors of their lightstones, and the way her people built houses that shimmered softly in the dark. But soon, their talks moved beyond facts. They began to share dreams. One night, Aaron brought a small wooden flute. "This is simple," he said, smiling as he lifted it to his lips. A soft melody drifted across the river, light and gentle like a breeze. Lyra listened, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is like the river speaking," she whispered. "I feel it moving in my chest." Aaron lowered the flute, smiling shyly. "Music is like that for humans. It goes where words cannot." Then Lyra lifted her hands. The stones floated above her fingers, glowing softly. She moved her hands in slow, graceful shapes, weaving the light into glowing threads. They twisted and curled, forming flowers, stars, and rivers of gold. "Your song for the eyes," Aaron said softly, echoing his words from before. She laughed gently, the sound like a bell. "Perhaps our gifts are not so different after all." They stood together in the center of the bridge, the flute's melody fading into the night as the glowing patterns shimmered in the air. For a moment, the bridge felt alive with music and light, holding their laughter and their wonder in its shining stone. Night after night, they grew closer. Aaron taught Lyra a simple human dance. He stepped carefully, showing her how to move to the rhythm of his flute. She followed, her steps awkward at first, but soon she moved with grace, her glowing eyes reflecting the joy on his face. They danced under the moons, their shadows stretching across the glowing bridge. In return, Lyra showed Aaron how to weave with light. She guided his hands, steady and patient, teaching him how to hold the stones and move them in rhythm. His first shapes were clumsy, but she laughed kindly and encouraged him. By the third night, he managed to form a glowing circle, and Lyra clapped her hands softly, her eyes shining with pride. "See? The bridge listens to you now," she said. Aaron looked at the glowing shape, then at her, and smiled. "Maybe it listens to us both." But even as their bond grew, shadows lingered beyond the bridge. Lyra's elder watched her carefully. He saw the glow in her eyes when she returned each night, and he grew uneasy. "Do not walk too far into human paths," he warned her. "They are not like us. Their hearts beat with fire that burns too quickly." Lyra lowered her gaze but said nothing. Aaron, too, heard whispers among his people. Some of the workers laughed at him, saying he spent too much time wandering at night. One older man pulled him aside. "Be careful, boy. The Ilari smile kindly, but their ways are strange. Do not forget who you are." But Aaron could not forget the bridge. And he could not forget Lyra. One evening, when he hesitated at the edge of the river, wondering if it was right to keep meeting her, he remembered her laughter, her glowing hands, and the way the bridge seemed warmer with her near. His doubts faded, and he stepped forward once more. That night, he found her waiting with a new gift. She had woven the glowing stones into a small thread and tied it into a circle. She held it out to him. "For you," she said simply. Aaron took it carefully, the soft light glowing against his skin. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "It will remind you of the bridge," she said. He smiled. "I don't need a reminder. But I will keep it." The two stood close, the river flowing silently below. The moons rose higher, and the bridge glowed brighter, carrying the memory of their growing bond. They did not know what the future would bring, or what their people would say. But for now, the midnight bridge belonged to them, a place where light and music met, where fear was forgotten, and where two hearts found something new. And as the night deepened, the sparks between them grew stronger, like a fire waiting quietly to be seen. The colony slept quietly under the moons, but trouble often came when no one expected it. That night, a sudden shout echoed from the storehouses near the river. The wooden walls, dry from weeks without rain, had caught fire. No one knew how it started, perhaps a spark from a lantern, perhaps carelessness, but within moments the flames spread high into the sky. The people rushed out of their homes. Men and women carried buckets, forming lines to the river. Children cried, and smoke filled the air. Aaron, who had been on his way to the bridge, saw the bright glow rising near the water. His heart raced. The fire was too close, and if it spread further, it would reach the bridge itself. Without thinking, he ran forward. "Bring water here," he shouted, joining the chain of colonists passing buckets. But the flames were strong, and the heat forced them back. Then, through the smoke, Aaron saw something that made him pause. From the other side of the river, figures moved quickly, their hands glowing. It was the Ilari. And among them was Lyra. Her eyes shone brightly as she lifted her hands toward the fire. The Ilari light spread out in waves, calming the wild flames, slowing their rise. It was not enough to stop the fire completely, but it gave the humans a chance to throw more water and protect the buildings. Aaron's chest filled with determination. He grabbed 2 heavy buckets at once, rushing past others who hesitated. With them, he called out, pointing toward the Ilari. "Work with them." Some colonists looked uneasy, but when they saw the flames shrinking where the glowing waves touched, they understood. Slowly, humans and Ilari began to move together, side by side. Water splashed, light shimmered, and the fire cracked loudly in protest. On the bridge, Aaron found himself standing next to Lyra. Smoke curled around them, and the crystals under their feet glowed brighter, as if feeding on the heat. "You came," Aaron said, his face darkened with soot but his eyes shining. "Of course," Lyra replied firmly. "The river belongs to us both. The fire does not choose between human or Ilari." Together, they carried buckets, lifted supplies away from danger, and guided people to safety. The bridge became the center of movement, humans crossing to hand water, Ilari crossing to bring tools. The two sides, who so often walked apart, now shared one path under the burning sky. At one point, a child stumbled on the bridge, coughing from the smoke. Aaron rushed forward, but Lyra was already there, her glowing hands calming the child's fear. The boy looked up at her with wide eyes, then at Aaron, and whispered, "Thank you." That single word felt like more than just gratitude. It felt like a seed of trust planted in the middle of chaos. The fire burned for hours, but at last, under the combined effort of water and light, it gave way. Smoke drifted into the night, leaving the storehouse blackened but still standing. The people cheered weakly, exhausted but relieved. Aaron leaned against the railing, his body aching. Lyra stood beside him, her hands dim now after pouring out so much light. For a moment, they simply breathed together, the sound of the river washing away the noise of the fire. Then Aaron noticed something. The humans and Ilari were no longer staring at each other with distance. They were speaking short, careful words, but words nonetheless. A human man offered thanks to an Ilari woman. An Ilari youth handed tools back to a human worker. And in the center of it all was the bridge, glowing softly, carrying footsteps from both sides without fear. "They saw us," Aaron whispered, almost to himself. Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Yes. They saw us together." The truth of her words sank deep into him. What had begun as secret meetings now stood in plain sight. Their bond was no longer hidden in the quiet of midnight, it was written in firelight, visible to everyone. Some would be glad, Aaron knew. Others would not. But no one could deny what had happened. Without the Ilari, the storehouse would have burned to the ground. Without the humans, the light alone would not have been enough. Together, they had saved the colony. The moons were setting when the people finally returned to their homes. The river grew quiet again, though the smell of smoke still lingered. Aaron and Lyra stayed on the bridge a little longer. They looked out at the dark water, tired but filled with something stronger than exhaustion, hope. Lyra placed her hand lightly on the railing. "Tonight, the bridge has carried more than just us. It carried everyone." Aaron nodded slowly. "And maybe now they will understand what it means." The bridge glowed softly under their feet, as if agreeing. And above, the first light of dawn began to rise, painting the sky in gentle colors. For Aaron and Lyra, the night of fire had changed everything. The midnight bridge was no longer only their secret place. It had become a symbol for both worlds, and for the spark between them that refused to fade. The night of the fire left a mark on the colony. For days, people spoke of it, how the flames had almost swallowed the storehouse, how the Ilari light had slowed the blaze, and how humans and aliens had worked together on the glowing bridge. Some voices were hopeful. "Perhaps they are not so different," one farmer said. "Perhaps we can learn from them." Others, however, carried doubt. "We needed their help once," another man muttered, "but that does not mean we should trust them always." Aaron heard both kinds of voices. When he walked through the market, some nodded at him with quiet respect, remembering how he had worked side by side with Lyra. But others looked at him with suspicion, whispering when he passed. He tried to ignore it, yet the weight of their stares pressed on his shoulders. At night, he still went to the bridge. But for 2 evenings in a row, Lyra did not appear. The glowing stones lit his path, yet the other side remained empty. Aaron stood there, listening to the river, wondering if she had chosen to stay away. His heart ached at the thought. On the third night, he saw her at last. She stepped onto the bridge slowly, her glow dimmer than usual. "You came," Aaron said softly, relief in his voice. "Yes," she replied, though her tone carried a shadow. "But I should not have." Aaron frowned. "Why do you say that?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "My elder spoke with me. He said the fire made humans look to us with need, but need is not trust. He says that if I keep meeting you, I may bring trouble to my people." Aaron's chest tightened. "But you saw what happened. We worked together. We saved the storehouse." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes filled with quiet sadness. "Not all remember it that way. Some of my people say we gave too much, that the humans will expect more now. They fear we will be used." Aaron shook his head firmly. "That's not true. I don't see you as someone to use. I see you as—" He stopped, the words heavy on his tongue. "I see you as a friend." Lyra gave a faint smile, though it faded quickly. A friend across a bridge is still across a distance. The silence between them grew heavy. The river moved below, carrying the reflection of the moons, while the bridge glowed faintly, as if waiting for their choice. For the first time, their meeting did not feel free. It felt weighed down by voices not present, by doubts that did not belong to them but had found their way into their hearts. The next day, Aaron worked with little energy. He thought of her words, replaying them again and again. Each time he tried to believe that their bond was stronger than fear, but the whisper of doubt was hard to silence. That evening, he walked again to the river. The bridge shone in the distance, waiting, but he hesitated at its edge. What if she did not come? What if she had already chosen to stop? He stood there for a long time, torn between hope and despair. Finally, he stepped onto the crystal, each footstep echoing louder than before. He reached the middle and waited. Minutes passed. The river flowed quietly, the air cold on his face. He looked toward the Ilari side, but it remained dark. His heart sank. Still, he did not leave. He stayed, leaning against the railing, staring at the water below. The bridge had carried so many of their memories, the music, the light, the laughter, and now it carried only silence. Yet even in that silence, Aaron made a choice. He would not give up. "I'll keep waiting," he whispered to the river. "Even if she does not come, I'll keep waiting." The crystals glowed faintly at his words, as if remembering them. When he finally turned back, the moons were already high, and the night was deep. He walked slowly to the colony, his heart heavy but firm. On the other side of the valley, Lyra sat by her window, looking toward the glowing line of the bridge in the distance. Her elder's words echoed in her mind, but so did Aaron's smile, his flute, and the warmth of his presence. Her hands closed around her light stones. She whispered to herself, "The bridge does not belong to fear. It belongs to us." But she did not yet move. For now, the bridge remained waiting, carrying the memory of their bond, even as doubts tried to pull them apart. The days passed slowly after their last meeting. Aaron carried on with his work, but his heart was never fully in it. Every sound of rushing water reminded him of the bridge. Every quiet night reminded him of her absence. The colony tried to return to normal after the fire. Repairs were nearly finished, and the fields had begun to recover. But Aaron noticed something else. People spoke less about the Ilari, as though pretending the fire and their help had been only a dream. Still, whenever he passed the river, his eyes searched for a faint glow. And whenever evening came, he found himself walking toward the bridge, even if he promised himself he would not. On the other side of the valley, Lyra was restless too. She tried to focus on her duties, weaving threads of light into patterns that guided her people's crops and shelters. But her thoughts strayed again and again to the boy on the other side of the river. She remembered his laughter, his stubborn courage, the way he had refused to run from the fire. She remembered his promise that he would wait. Her elders' warnings pressed heavily on her, yet so did her own heart. One evening, as the moons rose high, she stood at the edge of the glowing path, torn between fear and longing. "Elders' words are wise," she whispered to herself. "But my heart is not silent." With that, she stepped onto the bridge. Aaron was already there. He had been sitting with his flute in his hands, too heavy with doubt to play. When he saw the glow of her form stepping out of the darkness, his breath caught. He almost thought he was dreaming. "Lyra," he said, standing quickly. She stopped a few steps away, her light trembling faintly, like a candle in the wind. "You kept waiting," she said softly. "I told you I would," he replied, his voice low but firm. "I couldn't stop." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the distance between them filled with silence and moonlight. Then slowly, Lyra walked closer until they stood face to face. "I was afraid," she admitted, her voice shaking. "Afraid that being here would harm my people. Afraid of what they might think of me." Aaron's eyes softened. "I was afraid too. Afraid you wouldn't come back. Afraid that the bridge would stay empty forever." Her glow brightened, just a little. "And yet, we are both here." Aaron smiled faintly. "Maybe that means the bridge is stronger than fear." The words settled between them, gentle but powerful. For the first time in many days, the bridge felt alive again. The crystals shimmered brighter under their feet, as if answering to the bond that had pulled them back together. Lyra lifted her hand, holding out a light stone. "I brought this for you," she said. "It holds a piece of our light. If you keep it, it will remind you that even when I am not here, I am not far." Aaron accepted the glowing stone carefully, as though it were more precious than gold. His eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, Lyra. I'll keep it always." In return, he held out his flute. "This is all I have to give. But when you hold it, you can play the same notes I do. Maybe, across the river, you'll hear my song." Lyra touched the flute with wonder, her hands delicate on the wood. "I will listen," she promised. For a while, they spoke of small things: the stars, the river, the sounds of the night. But beneath their words was a quiet joy, the joy of reunion after distance. The fear had not disappeared, yet it no longer ruled them. As the night grew deeper, Lyra looked up at the moons. I must return soon, she said softly. But I will not stay away again. Not if you still wish to meet me. Aaron's answer was steady. I'll be here, every night. The bridge is ours. When she finally stepped back, her glow trailing like soft fireflies, Aaron did not feel sorrow. For the first time since the fire, he felt hope bright, steady, unshaken. He held the light stone in his hand, and its glow warmed his heart. He knew she carried his flute, and perhaps even now, she would play its first note. The river flowed below, carrying away the doubts that had once divided them. Above, the bridge shone bright, no longer waiting but alive with the promise of two hearts choosing to return. And though the night was silent, Aaron felt music all around him. The nights that followed their reunion were brighter. Each time Aaron stepped onto the glowing bridge, he found Lyra waiting, her light soft and steady. Sometimes they spoke for hours, sometimes only shared silence. Yet even silence felt alive on the bridge, as though the stones themselves carried their words into the river below. News of their meetings spread quietly through both sides of the valley. At first, people whispered in suspicion, humans saying Aaron was too trusting, Hilary saying Lyra was too bold. But slowly, curiosity began to replace fear. One evening, a farmer crossed the bridge with his daughter just as Aaron and Lyra stood together. The farmer paused, expecting anger from the Hilary. But instead, an elder on the far side greeted him politely. That single moment broke a wall of silence. The next night, more footsteps echoed across the bridge. A human woman brought woven cloth to trade, and an Hilary answered with glowing threads. By the end of the week, the bridge was no longer empty at midnight. It carried laughter, cautious words, and even the first steps of trust. Aaron watched this change with awe. Do you see, he whispered to Lyra one night as they leaned over the railing together, gazing at the shining river. People are beginning to believe what we already knew. Lyra's glow brightened, her voice gentle. The bridge was never meant to stand in silence. It was meant to carry many footsteps. We only reminded them of that. Yet she knew it was not easy. Some still doubted, some still resisted. But the fire that had once divided the valley had now become a story of courage of a boy and a girl who refused to let fear break their bond. Weeks later, a festival was announced. It would be held on the bridge itself for the first time, under both moons, to celebrate the harvest and the new friendship. Humans hung lanterns along the riverbanks, while the Hilary prepared strands of glowing threads to drape over the bridge like stars. On the evening of the festival, Aaron stood nervously at the center of the bridge, watching people gather on both sides. His hands shook slightly, the light stone Lyra had given him warm in his pocket. Would tonight truly bring them together? Or would old fears rise again? Then he saw her. Lyra stepped forward from the Hilary crowd, dressed in flowing silver cloth that shimmered with her natural glow. She carried the flute he had given her, holding it as carefully as a treasure. When their eyes met, Aaron felt the nerves melt away. He walked to meet her at the center, and together they stood, the crowd watching silently. Lyra raised the flute and played a soft, trembling note. The sound floated across the water, clear and beautiful. Aaron lifted his own simple instrument and joined her, the two melodies weaving together like the river and the light. Something changed in the air. The humans and Hilary listened, then slowly began to move closer, crossing the bridge in both directions. A child laughed. Someone clapped. An elder from the Hilary side offered food to a human family, and the gesture was accepted. The bridge was alive. Later that night, As lanterns swayed and glowing threads shone overhead, Aaron and Lyra stood hand in hand at the highest point of the bridge. Around them, people of both worlds mingled, trading stories, sharing songs, and walking without fear. "This is what I dreamed of," Aaron said softly, gazing at the river lit with reflections of fire and light. Lyra turned to him, her glow steady. "It is no longer a dream. Look, our people are walking the same path." Aaron smiled. "Then the fire on this bridge was never meant to destroy. It was meant to light the way." They stood quietly for a while, watching the stars above them and the river below. For the first time, the valley felt whole. As the night reached its end, the festival lights began to dim, but the bridge itself glowed brighter than ever. The crystals shimmered as though they had been waiting centuries for this moment, for footsteps, for music, for laughter, for unity. Aaron held the light stone in one hand and Lyra's hand in the other. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. Doubts and challenges would come again. But tonight proved that love could open doors no fear could close. Lyra rested her head lightly against his shoulder, her voice soft. "The bridge is no longer just ours, Aaron. It belongs to everyone now. And yet," he whispered back, "it will always remind me of you." The river below carried the last notes of their music into the dawn. Above them, the first light of morning touched the sky, painting the world in soft gold. The midnight bridge had become a place of fire, but not of destruction. It burned with warmth, with hope, and with love that crossed worlds. And as long as the bridge stood, its glow would tell the story of two hearts who refused to turn away.